Above and beyond borders. It's Borderline
with Ireti Bakare-Yusuf.
He needs to turn.
My son?
Welcome back to Borderlines, Lagos, Nigeria, wherever you're joining us from. As you know, we have been covering the situation in Kenya. We started covering before everybody else, and we're still covering it. I have with me Alex Kiarie. Alex is also one of the journalists that went to Israel with me when I went last year. Alex, let me just tell them what you do. Alex is the health and science editor of Standard Group Kenya. He also assists with the TV assignment roles for KTN News. Standard Group runs 2 legacy TV channels and 3 radio stations besides the Standard newspaper and other platforms. So in short, Alex is the person to have. And I assure you, if you thought Getate was very direct last week, Alex is even more direct. So it's an absolute pleasure to have you, Alex. Welcome to Borderlines.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ireti. It's been quite a while since we last met in Israel.
Indeed it was. And I remember, the hell you and I gave them in Israel. But we're not going to talk about that now.
We need to have time for that.
Well, I intend to invite everybody onto this show so we can actually have a conversation about it, because of course things have gone forward. But let's talk about Ruto, right? So of course, I mean, he sacked everybody. So last week he had the spaces conversations. The youth have been able to actually say to him, look, we're not going to talk to you on your spaces. We want to talk to you on our spaces line. The guy who set up the spaces was beaten up and attacked. You need to give us an update as to why, what happened with him. But secondly, and most importantly, is the biggest news this week is that Ruto has done as the youth requested on that spaces. They said, get rid of your cabinet. We don't want them. They're spending the money like it's their money. We don't trust them. Somebody even called them incompetent. I remember one of the young people on the spaces saying, I grew up, and this stuck with me. He said, I grew up and I would look at ministers as people who were intelligent, people I could look up to, educated and smart people. He told Ruto, you were one of those people that I would look up to. But now, these are not intelligent ministers. Alex, what's going on?
It's a lot. A lot is going on, actually. Even before I go into what's going on exactly, today the head of the police actually was forced to resign.
Oh.
Yes, it has happened. Things are really unraveling so fast. He quit at around 3 p.m. local time here in Kenya. And it's also at the same time that 9 bodies were discovered in the outskirts of the city. Some with bullet wounds, but most of them were women, actually. We are trying to ascertain what really happened to them, but the allegations that these are the people who were shot in parliament, and then the bodies retrieved and then taken away and hidden, and then later to emerge in a mass grave in the city, just outside the city. But what's going on basically is that people are fed up with William Ruto. I think this has been coming, and I believe maybe Gatete could have spoken about this thing.
Yes.
It was seen coming, and I think I had also mentioned this thing to you in Israel about the emergence of climate change-related challenges.
Correct.
That have led to changes, and also now governments in Africa, including actually beginning with Kenya, are now coming face-to-face with what we can call economic protests. Right. And they're not very easy to handle. Right now, as we speak, Kenya is under the heel of very strong and tough conditions set by IMF and World Bank. I know we have spoken about this in detail, the effects and He has been forced to impose taxes on people, on the Kenyans, to raise money to pay the debts that were incurred when he was the DP over 10 years ago. And some of these debts are the ones that were incurred at the time. Actually, he supported them, went around supporting it and talking about it for long. And now the time has come to pay. And since he cannot pay, he can only tax us more so that he can be able to now beat the deadlines. But now people are protesting, and the beginning of it all is with the Gen Zs, who make up actually the majority of the people in the country who are jobless. Some of them have turned 18, 19, 20 years, graduated, yet they've seen their parents struggle throughout to bring them up and pay for the education. But now, education in the university and tertiary colleges has been actually heightened. It's more expensive right now to educate a young person in Kenyan universities than before. As we speak, the health sector is collapsing. This gentleman, Ruto, came up with a policy, an act of parliament that sought to repeal the ongoing National Health Insurance Fund, NHIF, and replace it with something called Social Health Authority, which I understand was supposed to be more collaborative and more inclusive. But the courts actually ruled against it, and he went ahead with it. Today, actually, the court made another ruling that declared the whole thing as unconstitutional. So today, 3 blows.
Wow.
A resignation of the police commissioner, the discovery of bodies in a mass grave, and then the declaration of Social Health Authority as unconstitutional. And this is also coming at a time when he's trying to form what we call here broad-based government, which is a government that now involves or includes members of the opposition who have not really been so comfortable with it. And all of them are now forgetting the fact that the Gen Z protesters are not against Ruto only. They're against the political elite. They do not like it. They have been abusing even the leader of opposition, Raila Odinga, who is being pushed by the president to pick up that seat at AUC. And they're telling him, we do not even want you. You have been benefiting from this mess for years. So right now, you cannot tell us anything. You cannot be part of this inefficient and this corrupt system unless you want to do what you usually do. So we want nothing to do with them. And this time around, people just want issues to do with governance, corruption dealt with, and also those people involved in the theft of public resources prosecuted. Last week, it was discovered that the National Health Insurance Fund, which is now being replaced, lost over 9 billion shillings. That's a lot of money that could have done a lot of stuff. And right now, many Kenyans are grappling with cancer cases, which are very expensive to treat. And now, when they're telling us that you want to replace what was working with what we don't even know how it's going to work, then it's just a lot of mess, and it's funny.
Okay.
Because yes.
Let's talk about, first of all, for us in Nigeria, and I'm sure the whole of Africa is thinking, what? The chief of police has been forced to resign as a result of mass grave, of, finding bodies in a mass grave in Africa during an uprising. It's not common. We don't hear of this, Alex. We do. You know that. You know that. We all know that.
Yes.
We Africans are looking at Kenya and thinking, what is going on? But here's the thing. There are arguments that say that the Kenyan young people were able to do this because the elders were behind them and the military didn't turn against them. Would you say that statement is correct or not?
It is correct and also not correct. Okay. Why Kenya is being seen differently is simply because of the constitution that we have, which was promulgated in 2010, which gives all the powers to the people. So don't try this thing at home, as they will say in the wrestling matches.
Yes.
If your constitution doesn't allow it, don't. You'll be killed. And African countries and the police and the militaries are used to doing all these things. But in Kenya, it is a bit different because the constitution, every institution works according to the constitution. And the reason why we are seeing even the police commissioner being forced to resign is simply because he did things that were not legal. And in Kenya, his appointment was constitutional. So the only way out was not having fired because he was interviewed by the parliament, but he can only be forced or compelled to resign, according to the constitution. And this is based on the protests that happened and how he handled it. If you recall, just before the raid on Parliament, or if I may call it that way, the breaching of Parliament, there was a previous protest which was largely peaceful, but most of the protesters were provoked by police officers who just lobbed tear gas canisters at them. Yet they were really peaceful. Businesses were operating, everything was happening. But the last two protests that we saw were all political. And this is where now everything has gone south. Politicians trying to counter the Gen Z protests used political means. They forgo which is very and can only be resolved through institutional reforms. And the person who can only institute these reforms is the person in charge of the country, which is the president.
Yeah.
And that is why, even as they were sending the protesters and everything else, the goons, that is, we call them goons. These are just non-state armed groups, which usually end up messing up, and they're owned by politicians. They're sent by politicians to go and mess up their rivals' political events. So that's how they chose to go about it. But the institutional and the questions that are being raised by these people were not political. They are basically economic and governance related, and they were not violent. And also, the police never at any moment tried to interpret this protest as peaceful. Instead, they used those combative and those hardcore and choleric approaches to do that.
You mentioned the Kenyan constitution. Now, of course, the youth, the protesters have been saying Ruto must go. Yet at every point, Ruto continues to try to appease them with different gifts, if you like, austerity measure, banning excessive spending, not signing the finance bill. And now, he's responding to a lot of the noise about what the police have done to protesters. He's sacked the police chief, has been forced to resign. He's also sacked his cabinet. Right. Now, do you think the Kenyan youths or the protesters will be happy, will think that is enough? And your constitution, does your constitution permit for Ruto to be sacked by the people? And if so, what would actually happen? So let's say Ruto was to resign and the young people said, nope, everything you've done is not enough, we want more, and he continues to capitulate to them. If he ends up resigning, what would happen?
The Constitution of Kenya gives people the power. The people also give power to the leaders they choose. And if I may just go back to the previous question that I didn't answer, the Gen Z protesters are not just Gen Zs. The ones who are planning and actually executing some of these protests, and actually you can agree that they've been really very, very unique, are millennials, where some of us belong. The millennials who are doing all these things.
I know you're a millennial, Alex. Yes, I can tell.
And interestingly, the whole aspect of using technology, that the people who are actually the second generation geek, or we call them the geeks, the people who are computer savvy, are us. However, we were not able to go to the streets, but we need to have foot soldiers. And now we have the Gen Zs. So Gen Z is no longer about Gen Z anyway. People were born, I think, 1996 and after. But now it's all about even their parents, their big brothers, like some of us here, and also even the grandfathers who allegedly were being duped by this government, as they said. Now, when you're talking about the resignation of the president, the Constitution has all these things, although I think you need a lawyer to be able to give you all the details. But usually it involves collection of signatures and then being impeached by Parliament. And also the same applies to the members of Parliament, even the senators in the country. However, I would just like to draw some parallels with some of the issues that could come into play. When you're dealing with a political crisis, it is very easy to resolve it using the power of the brawn, the muscles and everything, the power of the gun and everything. But when you're dealing with an economic situation, the Constitution sometimes doesn't apply. When people march on State House and order that the president leaves, just like it happened in Sri Lanka, you can never quote the constitution to stay in power, because even if the constitution gives you the power, when you have lacked the legitimacy like the president here, it won't really call for the constitutional reforms or invoking the laws and all these things. It is all about hungry people raising because of their pain. And that one usually, just like it happened in Burkina Faso, they burned down parliament because they were hungry. They were being killed by armed groups. So they said, no, we're tired of this. Get out.
Yeah.
He was legally in office. He was elected. I'm talking about Blaise Compaoré.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
You see, so what happened in Sri Lanka? They were legally in office, but they were kicked out. The brother. You see, so this the ugly side of economic protests and crisis, which can only be resolved by governments that come in place to replace the existing ones that are blamed for getting into some funny agreements with some institutions.
Okay.
Which now, when they come demanding for their monies, you start raising taxes. People say, no, you are the one who got into these funny agreements. Go resolve it. They usually, just like it happened in Greece, happened in South Africa. I think this is the same case that saw the rise of Ramaphosa, and it will actually be facing a similar problem. It also happened in Spain. It also happened in Ireland. All these governments had to be replaced for the new ones to go and renegotiate and have more time for payment of these loans, just like where we are right now. So President Ruto might be appeasing the people, but right now the Gen Zs are just ticking the boxes. They have raised their demands. So you need to dissolve the cabinet. He has done it. They tick the box. We need the police inspector general to resign. He has resigned. They tick the box. But the last box is Ruto.
Oh, the network. Oh, this is the. Are you back, Alex? The Zoom has frozen. No, say that again. We're losing. We lost the last one you said. So, the last one is.
So, since he's already ceding ground, he might end up even ceding State House. So the more he ticks, he does whatever they want, the more they tick the boxes, and the more they demand for more. You see?
Right.
And he cannot be able to do all these reforms overnight. So the pressure is quite high, and there should be that aspect of leaders even understanding that once elected, they are supposed to answer to the people elected them. And some of the utterances by some of these leaders, the former MPs who cannot even access their houses and their homes in the villages, were quite condescending just before the passing of that finance bill that was later recalled, or rather rejected. They made some very, very condescending and disrespectful comments to their electorates. So this is the reason now why the protests have been a bit more violent, if you may, or let me not say violent, but more consistent.
Yeah, and more aggressive. Demanding.
More targeted at because they're demanding for specific people to leave, including some of their MPs, some of the members of parliament and senators.
Now, so you talked about impeachment. You talked about it would have to be impeached. We're not hearing much from the opposition parties, right? They're quiet because the opposition parties have representatives they have MPs in the House. Also, we know that there's a conflict or an uneasy relationship between Ruto and his deputy. Is it possible that the traitor, as we've seen in other countries, could be the deputy who pushes for, the impeachment as a way to take over from his boss? Or should we expect the opposition party to do that?
This is not about traitor issue or anything. I know that this whole crisis has come at the wrong time for the president, because it came at a time when he was having his own political differences with the deputy, which were largely party politics. It's just about someone trying to say, no, I have my people behind me. And Kenya is a very tribal community, or rather society. So it has been such a shock even to the deputy himself, because the Gen Z protesters want nothing to do with him too. He's all part of the mess. Even the leader of opposition, part of the mess. Remember that there are some opposition MPs actually who voted for that discredited finance bill.
Yeah.
So it's all about these people having their own feuds from within and their own differences from without, but all being collectively condemned by the protesters as the corrupt.
Now, Kenya's obviously, like you said, it's no longer a Gen Z thing. Let's just call it Kenyan protesters, I think is the best way to put it now, rather than just be tagging it to Gen Z, because I think that's reducing it to a sector of the society. Now it seems like everybody's involved. Now, Kenyans aren't letting anything slide. They're moving with one voice, but you also just confirmed, we do know that Kenya is a very tribalist society, just like Nigeria is. How is it that they're able to get that one voice together?
You see, it is the unity in pain. The unity in pain.
Okay, the network has frozen again. You can call, send your message. I would prefer, actually, to be honest. 0809 597 5805. 0809 597 5805. We may not have time to pick any calls. If we do, I will try to pick your calls. We are streaming live on Facebook and on YouTube. You can also send a message to our Twitter, Nigeria Info FM, Instagram and Threads, Nigeria Info FM Lagos. And our website is Nigeria Info FM. Please put your comments on YouTube and Facebook. Alex, your link has frozen. Okay, we've lost Alex. He's back. He's back. He's trying to connect to audio now. Are you back, Alex?
Yes.
Okay.
I think I'm back. A moment, please.
Okay. Yes, go ahead.
I should be back.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you, but I can't see you yet.
That's my worry. Let me just hold on a bit.
Well, you can continue to talk. You can continue to talk to me. Okay.
I should be back
there
now.
You are. Yes, you are. I can see you.
Yes.
Thank you for fixing that very quickly. Yeah, you were saying.
Yeah,
I asked you about how they were able to overcome that tribal division.
You see, it is the pain, the collective pain that people are going through. That bill that was recalled had some of the most punitive taxes that affected everybody. And this in itself forced all Kenyans across the tribal divide to come together. Let me just give you an example. The sanitary towels for women that are not manufactured locally were supposed to have an almost 16% tax, a levy on it imposed. This is coming at a time when the country's manufacturing sector is almost dead. Nothing is manufactured in the country so far. Manufacturers have left because of the already existing punitive measures in the country. The issue...
Oops. We might have to take Alex without video because the network isn't so great. Alex, we've lost you again. It's a good time to send in your questions if you've got any to 0809 597 5805. We're having, as you can see, network is an everywhere problem, not just a Nigerian problem. We're having issues with Alex's network. He's joining us from Nairobi. As you've been listening, President Ruto has continued to capitulate. We can no longer call this a Gen Z protest. It is millennials, it is Gen Zs, it is the grandmothers, the grandfathers, it is everybody in the country, it is all tribes. Because the first thing people will often say is, oh, they have different tribes in Kenya, oh, this is happening. And you've seen a lot of Nigerians projecting their Nigerian mindset onto this protest that the whole world, especially all of Africa, is watching and waiting to see where will this end. Right now, President Ruto has capitulated to every single demand from the protesters. As you heard my guest Alex saying, the protesters are ticking the box. They demand for this, he does it, they tick the box. They demand for the next one, he does it, they tick the box. It all started from hunger. It all started from, okay, Alex is calling me. Please, I need you to deal with that. Alex is calling me. Maybe he's having problems joining. He might want to join via the telephone. Zainab is going to be speaking to him outside the studio. While I continue to speak to you, why don't you call me now? Ask me the questions. I may be able to answer it for you. 0201 277 0993. The female line is 0201 465 7190. And once Alex comes back, I can put your question to him. Anyway, as I was saying, so it all started from that thing called hunger. It all started from everybody feeling the pain. And because it was a collective pain, everybody forgot about tribe. Because guess what? Hunger, pain, and everything else knows no tribe. I'm coming to your calls now. Hello?
Yes, teacher Ogelo.
Yes, good afternoon. Oh, the line's cut off. Do call back. As I was saying, pain, hunger, being broke, not having money, knows no tribe. Hello? Hello? Yes.
Hello?
Yes, good afternoon. What's your name and where you calling from, please?
Good afternoon. This is Pastor Balamosi from Sulere.
Pastor Badamosi, go ahead with your question, please.
Yeah, my question is that, you see, Kenya, they have only 3 languages. There's no problem. You can't compare Kenya and Nigeria. Why are
Nobody's comparing Kenya and Nigeria at all. I have not done that.
Okay. And Kenya is about maybe 40 million people. I don't know.
So your point is?
My point is, why are they having problems?
Have you been listening, Pastor Ladipo? You're asking why are they having problems? Have you been listening? We've done Kenya 3 or 4 times on this show now. We've gone into in-depth conversations. I have many more calls coming in, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello?
Hello.
Good afternoon. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is okay.
Yes.
Good evening, ma.
Good evening. What's your name and where are you calling from, please?
My name is Paul, calling from Maja.
Go ahead, Paul.
Before I continue, I want to correct the last caller. Kenya has doesn't have only 2 tribes.
No, let's not do that. Let's not do that. There's no need. There's no need. You only have a minute to yourself. Please go ahead.
With us here in Nigeria is that my brother, it is my brother that is there. When it was your brother, nobody disturbed him. He did all.
But we're not talking about Nigeria. We're talking about Kenya.
Now, hello, ma.
Yes, we are talking about Kenya.
So that is our problem here. That is why we cannot.
Hello? Okay, people, we are talking about Kenya. I have not asked you to call and talk about Nigeria. Can you please stay on topic? You know how borderlines work. We go beyond borders. My guest is joining us from Nairobi. He's a journalist. We're talking about what's been going on in Kenya. Unfortunately, his link got disconnected. Zainab is speaking to him outside. So that's why we have this opportunity to have this call or this conversation. Let's not detract from where we are. Hello, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
What's your name, where you calling from, and your question, please?
This is Uzoma calling from Ikotu.
Go ahead, Uzoma.
Well done, ma. My question is this, and it's baffling me, that how did they all agree at the same time?
Okay.
I know that they don't speak the same language.
No, actually, there is a common language between them, which is Swahili, even though everybody else has their own language.
Unlike some people that allowed tribe sentiment and religion to divide them.
Well, one of the things
together like that.
Okay, so as you've heard Alex say, all right,
to get one goal.
Right, as you've heard Alex say just before the line cut off.
Thank you, ma. Thank you.
Is that I'll answer your question. You've heard Alex say just before the line cut off that they were all together in their collective hunger, their collective pain. So collective hunger, pain, being broke, the fact that 16% tax was being added to sanitary towels. No tribe. Because every female that's going to be using a sanitary towel is up from different tribes. All tribes are female. And everybody's going to be paying a 16% tax on something that is critical to female hygiene. So you can imagine, right? There's your answer. Hello? Hello?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. What's your name? Where you calling from, please?
Good afternoon.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Peter.
Go ahead, Peter.
Concerning Kenya, I salute their courage. We are in their back. And I want to say that let this one be like lesson to African leaders. They should do the needful. And to our people, let united we stand, divided we fall.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I can't remember his name now, whether it was Emmanuel. My last caller makes a very good point, is that there is a lesson here for African leaders. And that is why the whole of Africa is watching what's happening in Kenya with very, very, very deep interest. Because it could change everything. Everybody keeps talking about Africa rising. Could this be the beginning of Africa rising? Could this be the beginning of change in behavior and mindset, sense of responsibility and accountability from African leaders? What could it be? We don't know, but we are all watching Kenya. Thank you for that point. Hello?
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Can I
Sorry,
say,
your name, where you're calling from, and your question, please.
Yeah,
okay, Alex is waiting to come back in. Can we please admit Alex into the room, please? He's waiting to come back. Merchant man, make your point very quickly, please.
It's just a submission. Can I say, if somebody did something for the first time and he failed, the next person is likely to copy from his errors to do it better. I think Kenya is doing better based on our failure on 2020 NSAS. So nobody can really always blame us, but due to the fact that the youth were actually visited with brutality and
yeah, but we're not talking NSAS. Let's stay on Kenya.
Okay. I think they borrowed a leaf from what we did and are doing their own better.
That's fair enough. I think that's a fair enough point. Thank you. Thank you, Merchant Man. And it's very possible. I mean, I would say they did. I would say that when we were having our NSAS, the rest of Africa was watching. And what often happens is, history will always tell you that no protest is a failure, because it tends to empower the next. And it's possible that the Kenyans, I believe it's not even possible, all of Africa were watching us. They were watching what was happening with our NSAS. And so the next one would take it on, and then they tend to do it different and better because they've learned from what they did the last one. But however, there is one thing though that we mustn't forget. Kenyans are used to protest, actually. They are not the quiet lot. You think Kenyans, because they're East Africans, because they're not as loud as Nigerians. Alex, welcome back. Listen to what I'm just telling my listeners. I was just telling them that if they think that, because East Africans are much more quieter, not as loud as Nigerians, but Kenyans have been used to protest. They have a history of protesting, especially in their elections, against the government, etc., etc. Am I right or wrong? Can you hear me? Has he frozen again?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you, please.
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, we are not really quiet people. We are not also very loud. I think we are just constitutional. Kenyan, if you look at the history of Kenya and its struggle for independence, Kenya is used to long drawn agitations. Just before we gained our independence, the fight for this actually lasted.
Oh, Alex, we can take you off. We can take you without video, if that would make your connection better. Because we keep.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. You can talk to us like this. Go ahead.
Sorry,
you don't have to be on video. Oh, okay. The phone calls are stopping it. Okay.
Yes, that's the problem.
Okay,
yeah, that's the problem.
because you're using your phone
on video.
Yes.
So we are used to this kind of agitations that are long drawn. Just before the introduction of multi-party politics in the country, it also lasted between 1988 and I think up to 1992 when we had the first election. Years of agitation, detentions, torture, and all these things. So any political leader in the country who might think that this is going down in a few should definitely think twice or think again about it, because we are in for a long time and it's not going to be the first time. Only that we have a constitution that now favors us.
And so let's talk about that constitution that favors you. I'm going to put you on the spot because I don't want us to run out of time. Do you think it will get to a position, a case, a situation, it will get to the nth degree where Ruto, as a result of his continuous capitulation, actually resigns?
Yes and no. And let's start with if he resigns. If he resigns, probably it will be the call for the military now to compel him to leave, because in Kenya, the military is supposed to be deployed within the country under two conditions. The first condition is when there is a case of emergency during disasters, just like it happened during the El Nino rains. And that is the same law that the then defense minister used to invoke the deployment of the military in the country. The second scenario, when it comes to quelling riots, is a whole different scenario, and it has to go through parliament. But now he used the wrong law to do the deployment in the streets of Nairobi, but during the protests, the protesters were very happy with the military. They never shot at them, because when you look at these protesters, they are very different kind of protesters. They come armed with three things: a bottle of water, a flag or a placard, and their anger. They're not armed in any way. So how can the military shoot at these people and kill them? The police have been doing it, but the military cannot do that because we have a professional army in the country that follows the law. So in the case of maybe Ruto giving up and opting to just quit, he can only hand over power to the military that can now lead a transitional government and then organize an election and have a civilian elected as per the current constitutional dispensation. The other option is maybe for Ruto to keep on fighting by using the divide and rule tactics and trying to force the protesters and their leaders into giving up the whole thing. But the more he's doing it through abductions, torture of the leaders, young people actually, and the disappearances, the more of them are emerging, and the more the resilient nature of the protesters. So we have a lot of things that he cannot, I don't think he can even manage to complete achieving them before he leaves office.
Okay. So
yes,
you are saying that it's possible that he will resign.
It is possible that he can be forced to resign by the military. If, for example, protesters march to State House, he cannot be able to do anything beyond that, because just be told, no, you know one thing, we cannot shoot at people who are not armed. They're not armed in any way. They just want to have a conversation with you. And since you seem to have lost legitimacy, just quit.
Okay.
So if they abandon him, then he'll be done.
Okay. Question for you. Yes. And even though this is, my listener, Yomi from Murio Konla, actually put a list there, but I'm going to rephrase his question for you. We have this, Ruto has talked about the huge, debt and, the money he needs from the World Bank, etc., etc. What is the impact of these protests on international or foreign investors into Kenya?
It is actually it's giving the government a very bad image, if you really asked me, because I know most of the protesters are very okay with the protesters, because even the investors, they have nothing against anyone who has invested in the country. When they were doing their own protests, businesses were running as usual.
Yeah,
churches were supporting them, hotels were feeding them, and actually distributing water. Who are lobbing tear gas canisters at them? Police officers. So the people who are losing, the investors who are losing, are those who are facing the brunt of goons and who have been unleashed on them by the political class, so that they can make the protesters look like they were the ones behind this destruction, and then maybe call for dialogue. You cannot blame the protesters for this. This is a whole political situation. So the whole problem is that those investors who are leaving the country are leaving because they've been let down by the government that failed to address the needs and the issues that has been raised by the protesters or by the people, civilians, and also failed to manage the protests in the right manner. These are the police.
Okay, now, earlier at the beginning of the conversation, I mentioned about the Twitter spaces that was held and about the guy who organized the Twitter spaces was beaten up. Why was he beaten up?
His name is Osama Otero.
Okay.
Osama Otero. He was one of the leaders of the movement, a Gen Z also. Actually, he's a millennial who had been hosting very high-profile, let me call them political rallies virtually on the Twitter space or the X space.
Pro politicians or pro the establishment or anti the establishment? What kind of rallies?
Establishment.
Okay.
He was a Gen Z rally guy. He was the one who hosted them, and actually he was one of the people who are very, very, very outspoken on the finance bill.
Okay.
So the agreement was that if the president wants to talk to these people, he should join that Twitter space where all of them are accommodated.
Right.
But now he went ahead. The president himself went ahead and opened his own channel. No one joined. Apart from his own people, his own apologists, members of State House, government institutions, the leaders, the ministers, and all that stuff. The Gen Z protesters did not join the president's space. So I think someone called Otero and told him, please have some money and host the president, and then let's have this conversation. And he accepted. So these young Gen Z felt betrayed because they told him, you are part of us. You are not supposed to accommodate this guy. He is supposed to join in, so that we have the powers to allow him to speak or not.
Right.
So that's the reason why they just felt betrayed, that he should not have done this thing, because there are rumors that actually he was bribed.
Right. Okay. Right. 1 second, Alex. I've got a call. I'm going to try and fit one or two in. Hello?
Okay.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. Your name, your question, please. Where are you calling from?
My question, I'm John from Open State.
Okay.
My question for your guest, I have like three small questions.
No. One.
Oh, okay. In our 1 year of government of our new president, we have borrowed IMF, borrowed us like over 120.
He's here to talk about Kenya, not Nigeria.
Now, I want to know, in Ruto's 2 years of reign, how much, does he have idea of how much Ruto collected from
the World Bank? Okay.
And the IMF?
IMF, thank you. Alex, keep that. How much has Ruto borrowed in his 2 years or over 2 years in office? How much has he borrowed from the IMF and World Bank? Let me answer one more call and then you can answer both of them. Hello?
Hello, Sister. Good evening.
Good evening. What's your name? Where are you calling from, please?
This is Chris calling from Ikeja.
Go ahead, Chris.
I want to ask the situation where I want to make an example with what happened on Earth, what happened in 2020.
I need questions.
Yes,
we don't have time.
That's what I want to make. And now, in a situation where the government hears protest, within the next hour, they will bring the government agents, security agents on the streets to scare protesters. In this situation, what should the citizens do?
But Alex is not here to talk about that. We already know what's happening. But we know what's happening but what I'm saying is, we already know what's happening in Kenya. He's told us their military isn't coming after them. In fact, the military have not attacked them. He's told us that the chief of police was forced to resign today. It's been part of the demand. So, but you're asking him to comment on something that could happen in any other country. I don't think that's a fair question. I'm sorry. Perhaps you have another one before?
No.
Thank you. Alex, so you heard the first question. Did you? I'm even trying to remember what it was now. Yeah.
How much was borrowed by...
That's right. The IMF question. Yes.
Yes. Right now, Kenya and Ruto, you understand, is borrowed almost 9.3 billion shillings in the 1.5 years has been in office. Remember that this country has almost 15 billion shillings, not actually around 20 billion shillings in debt that was incurred between 2013 and now. So people are asking, if by in less than 2 years, this guy has borrowed 9.3 billion shillings, actually over and above that amount, how much will he have borrowed by the time we complete this term of his? And then the second question here is that with everything collapsing in the country, the health sector, education sector, public infrastructure, everything else, where has this money gone into? What has it gone into? What has it done with the money? Because we know that former President Uhuru Kenyatta used the money that he borrowed to construct roads and a lot of infrastructure, including hospitals. This guy has done nothing. We have not seen anything happening here. We only see a lot of people becoming richer and richer, displaying very expensive watches, very expensive cars, some of them carrying money to churches in the so-called fundraising drives. Someone is carrying as much as 20 million Kenya shillings, which is almost around 40 million Nigerian naira in public, in notes, taking the money to the churches. Some of them are very arrogant. They are the ones who are harassing motorists on the roads. You see, but we see nothing. The president is always airborne. As they say here, he's either flying or lying. He keeps on promising people and then cuts budgets that should go into the ministries to assist in making life easier, even more cheaper for Kenyans. Every sector in the country has collapsed. Agriculture. Recently, we had this El Nino rains that ended a few months ago. Although we're still in the season, it came just after a 4-year dry spell in which agriculture was devastated. So when the rains came, of course, farmers were ready to plant. And then news came in that Russia had donated fertilizer to the farmers. This fertilizer ended up being sold to them, and then they call it a subsidized fertilizer. And then when it was still being sold, Kenyans were being forced, actually sometimes were buying what we call fake fertilizer. Although it was not fake, it was ground rocks mixed with some fertilizer, then sold to the farmers. So if this thing was donated by Russians, it was sold, and whatever was sold was actually fake. So
yes,
this is one of the reasons. So we have the rains here. We're supposed now to work on our food crisis and our food security. We have worked on our farms, and then what do we have? Fake fertilizer, and then the same minister was actually supposed to be impeached by Parliament. But understandably, which we know this is what happens in our Parliament, the MPs were bribed to save him from impeachment.
Right.
So he was a minister until yesterday. The same guy, part of this thing.
Well, here's the thing. One of the things that I heard, it's funny you should talk about, Kenya is agriculture. I've been there. I think I've been to Kenya 2 or 3 times. Known for their agriculture and everything. But suddenly Kenya is importing eggs, things like eggs. How? How, Alex? How did that happen?
The how is in the corruption. You subvert agriculture, make farm inputs very expensive. Farmers don't plant, they don't rear chicken, they don't grow anything. And then now you tell them, we can import from Tanzania, you can import from wherever. You flood the market with imported stuff. So it is cheaper to sell imported goods in the country than it is to produce locally. This is what happens everywhere.
Wow.
It started with sugar. Yeah. It went to maize. Then now we're talking about even eggs. We're talking about even milk.
Indeed. We've got probably about 4 minutes left or so. I'm going to put a question to you, which comes from my listener, Lanray. He sent it to WhatsApp 0809-597-5805. Those of you trying to call, as you know, we've lost time. Best you send a message or your question to WhatsApp quickly, and I'll see if I can put it to Alex. He wrote, Cecile Gay, I'm very proud of your work. I thought after Rotimi, no, he didn't mean Rotimi, after Sankore's demise, hope was lost. Africa needs visionary, sincere, and courageous leaders. The time is now. Would you agree, Alex?
I totally agree. And actually, we had this conversation with you in Israel, and
yes, we did.
We were able to dissect the nexus between corruption in the country, in Africa as a continent, and the failures that we are seeing here. If you recall what's happening in the Sahel region where your country also belongs, the insecurities that are affecting that region, issues to do with armed groups, issues to do with the rise of local and sometimes foreign-funded terrorist organizations, it is all tied to three things. The first and biggest contributor and push factor to the issue that we are seeing in Sahel region is climate change, food security, the collapse of Libya. So many desert locusts end up even coming up to Kenya here. Those were not the normal locusts that we know. Those were desert locusts. They came all the way from Libya through the Sahel region, all the way into Ethiopia, and then Somalia, through Yemen. Then here we are. It ended up messing up our food security. Communities that were coexisting peacefully before, mostly the nomadic communities, they used to be allowed to graze on the farmers' land, fertilize it, waiting for the next rainy season. Then the farmers will plant, you see, and then in the process they will even exchange livestock for food for crops. But now it is no longer raining as usual. The climate change has messed up. When it rains, it kills. When it doesn't rain, still the sun kills. So people are fighting over the little available resources, and it has reached this place. The second problem was governance. These leaders never saw this threat, and they never worked on reversing the effects of climate change.
Yes, indeed.
Now, they have nothing to do. They're just busy dancing with the foreign powers and the funders. You see? And then the third one is the colonial legacy.
Okay, you have to do that in 30 seconds because we've got to go. Yeah. Go on. The third one. Final.
So we need to have leaders who are visionary, who can be able to understand the challenges we're facing and the threats and work at resolving them. I think I'm done.
Alex, my word. And to think it took me so long to get you here, you are definitely coming back because we've got much more to discuss. Right? Thank you. Thank you so very much for giving us an update and your really important opinion about what's happening in Africa and, of course, in Kenya. Have a wonderful weekend, my brother. Okay. I'm all confused in here. Right. That's the end of Borderlines. We went to, where did we go again? We went to Syria, didn't we? We went all the way to Syria and brought it back to Africa. And of course, we gave you the latest update. Breaking news, you heard it here first in Nigeria. The chief of police in Kenya was forced to resign today after the discovery of mass graves. Okay? Thank you. Thank you for joining me. Alex, if you can still hear me, thank you for being my guest. Lagos, Nigeria, wherever you're joining from. Have a wonderful weekend. You can actually go onto our YouTube, Nigeria Info FM, to actually watch the show again in case you missed anything. So answer your calls. I saw all the calls coming in. There just wasn't time. Take care. Have a fabulous weekend. My name is Ireti Bakare-Yusuf. Yvonne is here. She's got the full detailed news. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. Bye-bye.
See you.
99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.